Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of Jesse's Junk Mail. Hope you're having a great day. Let's see, what do we have today? That's right, we have a special topic today. I ate too much for lunch. Yeah, I am. I'm gonna be a fatty before it's all said and done. I can tell. I can tell. So, when I first started the vlog, I did mention to you guys that if you had something you wanted me to talk about, just let me know and I'd give you my opinion on it, throw out what I know about the subject and everything. So I got a message from Brady, who is on YouTube. I follow him. You guys can give him a follow. He is also a gamer, but I also found out, looking at his YouTube, that he is also into he's into video games, but I didn't realize he was into comic books. And the reason why this took me a couple of days to do was because it put me back in a period of my life that I had long forgotten. As you can tell, Green Lantern there, I'm pretty excited about it. He is my all-time favorite comic book hero. His superpower, obviously, it comes from a ring and a lantern, but it magnifies his will. And I just think that's amazing because I like to consider myself pretty unstoppable. There's not a whole lot that stops me. You may beat me down, you may kick me, you may talk about me, you do whatever you want, but I promise you, make sure you're kicking hard. Because when I come up, it's going to be bad. But I believe in him. So I'm going to talk about him a little more. But if this video seems a little ADDDHD, that's because it is. I was so excited about this. Talking to my brother, I'm probably going to stutter through this. There was so much information and everything just came flooding back to me when I was a teenager. So Brady, thank you, dude. Excellent topic. I've had a lot of great memories. In fact, I went into a comic book store today. We had one in Slidell that just that had closed about 3 years ago, and I had gone in years ago with my godson. I wanted to share with him, the joy of going in and looking at the comics and picking out one and figuring out, figuring out who your favorite superhero was and start your own collection. I mean, this may not mean something for you guys, so those of you that aren't into this, y'all can just go ahead and click off now. It's not going to get any more exciting for you if you're not interested in comic books and superheroes. Unless you like looking at this face. This face is gorgeous. So you can stay and look at me if you want. It's going to be a little creepy, but I'll let you do it. All right. So a couple of websites that I absolutely had to go to refresh my memory because there was so much going on. So I want to give credit to them. Marvel.com, obviously. And then the other heavy hitter was DCComics.com. And for all your comic book needs, for those of you that can't get to a local comic book store, I do spend quite a bit of time researching, or I did spend quite a bit of time researching MidtownComics.com. They have a great selection. They seem reasonably priced. I really like the look of their product. There's a lot of information there, so I'm excited about that. And also, dang it, I knew I was gonna forget something. I knew it. This video right here is gonna kill me. I've been so excited about this. I talked to my brother about it and everything. I got paper. So let's get down to it. When I was I think it was 14 and a half. When I was 14 and a half, I was adopted. I went from my family to another family. And two elderly people took me in, and they had children of their own, obviously. And so my lifestyle completely changed, even at 14 and a half. And so I never was really into video games or comic books or anything like that. I was in toys, running around, you know, stuff like that. But my brothers started getting into, this was about the time the Super Nintendo came out, or the Nintendo, because I can remember getting my dad to play Super Mario Brothers, and he only had one eye before the surgery to fix the other one, so it was hard. I could see him hollering at the screen, but so we would go down at the old Circle Inn there in Bourbon, Missouri, and we would rent the Super Nintendo from Bob, and we would stay up all night and just play those video games, and then we'd take it back that Sunday. And but the second part of that was I got an allowance, and with that allowance, we had a drugstore. It's called Bourbon Drug, and Mr. Tom was a pharmacist there. Love Mr. Tom to death. He has passed, but the memories I have of him are absolutely amazing. Such a great man. So we would go into the Bourbon Drug I think it was every 2 weeks. And there, right there on the left-hand side, when you would go in, the comic book rack was there. And every 2 weeks, there were new comic books. And you can tell how excited I am just thinking about all this. So we would go through, my brother and I, we would go through and we'd take our money and we'd get our comic books, the things that we like reading. I'm going to be honest with you. I was all about X-Men. I loved them, absolutely loved them. Didn't care about Batman or Spider-Man or Superman. I really wasn't too concerned about any of them at that particular time. It was all X-Men. I just loved the characters and the way they all came together. So we bought them, and then we'd go home, and then and obviously we'd read them. The artwork was, you know, the artwork nowadays is wow, but the artwork back then was great too. And so so that started my love for comic books. But between Bourbon and Cuba, there's a little town called Leesburg. Now, just before you got to the Leesburg exit, if you looked on the right-hand side of the highway, you'd see this metal warehouse building. And that was a flea market. And when I was able to drive, I drove over there in my 77 Ford Thunderbird and had there was an old box in the back, and I was looking around, and there were comic books, and this was my first encounter with the Green Lantern, and it was entitled Green Lantern Corps. And for those of you that know the movie, I thought the movie was phenomenal. You can say what you want; you're not going to hurt my feelings at all. But that was where my love for that character first came in. That, you know, he just, I loved the art, I loved the storyline, I loved the thought of the Green Lantern Corps that came together to fight evil. I think that, I think that's great. So I began buying up everything I could Green Lantern. I bought everything he had. I bought boxes of comic books. And I had them for years, and just loved the whole thing. But I would encourage anybody that's into drawing and art and anything like that, get into comic books. They're doing some awesome things, and just to check out the different styles and everything. And you can tell when the artist is different, because you can tell there's that much distinction in the comic books. But I totally nerded out just there. So we have a couple of special mentions, and I wasn't quite for sure. This is just based on my knowledge and the things that I like about him. So all-time favorite, Green Lantern. Love him. Think he's great. But not the original Green Lantern. I was a fan of Kyle Rayner. I like the new outfit. I like the little mask. I like the redo of the ring insignia. This is the original ring insignia, but there were others that were done. And the one that Kyle Rayner had, I thought was just amazing. We have Aquaman. Once again, don't get bent out of shape. I was a real big fan of Aquaman, and this stemmed back from TV days when there was a cartoon. I think it was on, hold on, I got my list. Super Friends. They had a cartoon that was just phenomenal when cartoons just started rolling out and superheroes were actually hitting the airwaves. It was just great. Aquaman, some of his greatest battles were with the villain called Black Manta, and Black Manta just scared the crap out of me. You know, as a kid watching it, you're just like, oh no, Aquaman and the Black Manta, and I always equated the Black Manta with some type of terrorist because he was always doing something to hurt the oceans. And then my third is actually one you may not have heard of, but he's just a boss. I was fascinated with him as a young teenager, and I loved the storyline. I love the fact, but his name was Firestorm. They called him the Nuclear Man, and he was actually two personalities in one. And he had some amazing abilities. To watch his storyline, he was always talking to somebody in his head. Well, he could change any inanimate object. He could reform the structure of it into anything he wanted. Just period. That was amazing. But only if he knew the element of the composition of it. That was the kicker. So that's where that other guy inside, that other young man inside his head came into. But his name was Firestorm the Nuclear Man. I searched and searched and searched. He was actually a little harder to find than I thought he was. I had actually forgotten about him, but then when I started looking at all this nostalgia, it all came back to me. So I was like, what? So but he was just another amazing, absolutely amazing character. I loved him for that. So back to the Super Friends, talking about Aquaman and them, and there were a whole list of Super Friends. You had Batman, Superman, the Tornado, you had the Super Twin, you had the Wonder Twins, you had Wonder Woman, you had all these people. But one of my favorite characters off that little cartoon TV show, and he did have a comic book. I was unable to locate it, but at some point in time he did, and he was Apache Chief, and so I pulled it up there, and that's him, and no flair or anything. He was just the quiet Indian type. He was the very first Native American superhero I had ever encountered. And as recently they've had more. If you do the character search on DC, the DC Comics website and the Marvel.com, you will be able to see a list of characters, and I hope that kind of ignites your passion for it. But he was this guy got huge on television. It was amazing against the villains, and I forget what they're called right now because I'm so excited talking about it. But just by uttering some word, I never could figure out what the word was. It's in here somewhere. Iknikchak. And the more he said it, the bigger he got. And the bigger and bigger he got, and he got huge. And he would combat this cave lady that would grow up too. You know, for every good and evil, you've got an opposite for that. So I just absolutely loved it. You didn't see him in the series a lot, so when he showed up, it was a pretty good day for me as far as watching it. So I just loved it. So special mention there, Apache Chief. Thought he was amazing. So going on, there are 4 more I want to talk about real quick. So let's talk about lesbians for a minute. Look, everybody just panicked. The pastor's going to talk about lesbians. Look, now back in the day, you didn't mention stuff like that, and it could be insinuated in a comic, but it was never actually thrown out there. There came a comic book came out that I became fascinated with, and it was called Gen 13. Thought it was amazing. There were these 3 girls that had been genetically altered, taking their natural abilities, their natural abilities, and magnified. And there was one guy, and so the special mention, they all weren't amazing in my book, but one was, her name was Sarah Rainmaker, and they called her Rainmaker. She was she's like X-Men Storm, so weather manipulation. She was a beast, but she was also gay. And I can remember reading my first comic where it alluded to that, and I almost lost it. I was like, oh my dear God, she's gay. Well, wait, grunge is hitting on her, and she's not, she's gay. I was I was just fascinated. I absolutely loved it. She was one, while she was a beast, but she was also a bit of a peacemaker too. She's silent but very dangerous. But the honorable mention, Sarah Raymaker. Now what, 1, 2, 3. This is the third. The third honorable mention was Grunge. I loved Grunge because he was a slob. Thought he was great. Really didn't care what anybody else thought. He could bond molecularly with any property that he touched. In one of the comics, he bonded with the ground, and his hands just turned into earth, and he was kind of melded to the ground. Metals, he could bond with metals. He could basically bond with just about anything. Grunge was actually a beast. He was pretty laid back. He was always the jokester, but there's a backstory for him. Skater, surfer type dude. He was really one of the first mainstreams for the Gen 13 series that came out. I absolutely loved it. Loved the artwork that took place with the guy. Loved his attitude and everything. I thought he was very well written. So look him up. Gen 13 Grunge, yeah. So the full extent of his powers were never really explored. So I'm not really quite sure where the Gen 13 series is, even if it is still there. I haven't been in the comic book scene for years. But last but not least, special mention. We talked about the Green Lantern, we talked about Aquaman, and we talked about some of the favorites that I really enjoyed. Back in the 80s, there was a duo. Now you had all these duos that took place. Oh, I just thought of two more, just sitting here thinking about it. You had Ty Johnson and Tandy Bowen, and they were a comic book who later had a series, and it was reported that they were to have their own television show, but I never did see that, so I can't confirm that. But they were called Cloak and Dagger. And I really did enjoy the Cloak and Dagger series. They were basically the street heroes. They lived in a church, and their protector, their confidant, was a priest, and he offered them sanctuary because of their freakish appearance. So Cloak was. I mean, he was. Look these guys up. They're amazing. I'm not going to do them justice. I'm really not. Cloak was basically darkness, and Dagger was light. And there was a little mini series where they flipped, and she was darkness and he was light. Loved it. Absolutely loved the spin they put on that. But what I liked best about it was one of Dagger's powers were that with the light that she possessed, she could take the addiction out of somebody, and that was what they did on a regular basis. They fought terrorism, they fought thugs, they fought gangs, they fought not drug addicts. Well, I'm sure they fought them, but they fought the drug cartel that would bring the drugs into the streets. And it was well written. I don't even know if it's still a series. Like I said, I was a little ADHD trying to get all this together. I was so excited about it. I probably really didn't do it justice, to be honest with you. But they by far were probably my favorite duo. There was an offset to them called Hawk and Dove. Real angry guy in a red suit. Dove, she was the white suit, so there was an offset for them. But by far, Cloak and Dagger, my favorite duo. No, not Batman and Robin. Not a fan of Batman at all. Love the movies. Didn't really like the comic book. No. But Cloak and Dagger, hands down, my favorite duo. I thought they were worth honorable mention. So that's basically it. Brady, thank you, dude, just for suggesting that and taking me back all those years ago. I'd sold all those comics when I moved from Missouri to Louisiana, so I did not have those anymore. And just going back through the nostalgia and looking through the comic book store today, just brought all those memories back to me, and I could have kicked myself in the butt for letting them go. But I did go through the comic book store today. There's a new comic book store. It's been there for a minute. I've been kind of out of the scene, but they do the live action gaming there, and I thought that was pretty interesting. So I went in and I talked to the guy that was working there. So I wanted to gather some information, but he is on Robert Road there. He's on Robert Road in Slidell. So if you're curious about comic books, they've got a great selection. The first thing I saw when I went in there was I want to say it was a first edition Sabretooth comic. Absolutely amazing. And as you know, the X-Men did a lot of different storylines, and they're amazing too. See, I'm so ADHD about this right here, but love it. In fact, I will make special mention. Chris Ash was a childhood friend, and I think I'm still associated with him on Facebook. But he asked me what I wanted for my birthday one day, and he did a lot of drawings because my nickname's Gumby, so he did a lot of drawings of Gumby. I asked him to draw one of Storm, X-Men Storm, and he did, and still today, that is one of my most prized possessions. It was an amazing piece of artwork. I have it somewhere hidden safe, so maybe one day I'll be able to pull that out and show you guys. But Chris, hats off to you. Thank you very much for just an outstanding memory from way back in the day, dude. But hands down, Cloak and Dagger, look it all up. Marvel.com, DCComics.com, Midtown. If you're not near a comic book store, look them all up. That's basically about it. If you guys have any more suggestions, you let me know. I've absolutely loved this. I thought this was amazing. So, Brady, thank you very much, dude. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Even one more, go ahead and subscribe. If you got anything, the links aren't in the description. They're located on my page, as my friend B tells me all the time. I haven't learned to copy and paste through the phone yet, so you'll just have to deal with it. You can email me if you've got something on your mind that you want to say, or you can post it in the comments. But that's basically it, guys. Thank you for watching Jesse's Junk Mail. We will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully with something great and amazing. But if not, wherever it is you go, just remember, I love you. God loves you. Be blessed. This was absolutely fabulous. I love this. Yeah.